1066, a year that would forever alter the course of history. Almost 600 years after the fall of Rome in the west, and 180 since the division of the Frankish Empire, Europe found itself a fractured land, where petty dynasts vied for control of lands only loosely bound by weak monarchs. Into this climate entered a crisis that would not only come to define an island, but would radically change the English language and the future of Europe and the world.
Over the years, there had been a series of power struggles to decide who would rule the Kingdom of England. This was because, over the years, Scandinavians had taken control of different parts of the English Isles. Despite the successful efforts of the Englishmen to unify the kingdom, the throne was taken outrightly by the Danes. The Danish king, Canute the Great, would then rule England, Denmark, and Norway.
However, Knute's son and King of Denmark and England, Harthacnut, was childless, so he made a deal with Magnus I of Norway that whoever died first would be the other's heir. This means that when Harthacnut died in 1042, Magnus would have succeeded the thrones of both Denmark and England. However, it was not to be.
While Magnus was able to secure the Danish kingdom under his rule, England was effectively usurped by the Anglo-Saxon contender, Edward the Confessor. Exiled on the continent since the transfer of power to the Danish line, Edward had the support of Earl Godwin, the most powerful of the English nobles.
The story of 1066 begins, however, with Edward's death in that year. He, like Harthacnut, had borne no child and thus created a question over who would next rule England. There were four principal claimants.
When Edward the Confessor died, four men could have taken the throne after him. The first was Harold Godwinson, son of the Earl who invited Edward to take the throne and Edward's brother-in-law. Harold was the most powerful man in England and key advisor to the king. He claimed that the deceased had made him his heir on his deathbed, but Harold was the only witness. His claim rested primarily on his immense political power in England. Edgar the Atheling was the great-grandson of Ethelred the Unready, who was overthrown by the Danes. As such, he had the best Anglo-Saxon blood claim, being a direct descendant of Alfred the Great, the founder of the Anglo-Saxon royal bloodline, but was only in his teens and at the time of the succession crisis had very little chance of being recognized.
Harold Hardrada, the King of Norway, was the third claimant. Being the son of Magnus, who was promised the throne, Harold would try to take it back. In theory, this was a strong claim that most European powers would not consider the Viking claim legitimate.
Finally, we come to the real subject of our story, William the Bastard, Duke of Normandy, known to history as the Conqueror. Like Harold Godwinson, William claimed to have been promised the throne by Edward the Confessor, with little evidence of this ever occurring. William was distantly related to Edward, second cousin once removed, but his claim came from his powerful position and military prowess. William the Conqueror was one of the greatest military leaders of his day. A power-hungry, cunning, and sophisticated human being, he sought to rewrite history through his conquering of England. After the Battle of Hastings in 1066, he was crowned King of England. He never spoke English and was illiterate, but he had more influence on the evolution of the English language than anyone before or since. In addition, through his implementation of a variety of continental policies within England, he changed the very fabric of the nation for centuries. William the Conqueror began his extraordinary political career at a very young age. From the age of 8, William became a part of political affairs and earned a substantial amount of respect despite his disposition as a bastard child.
William was able to gain a certain degree of experience as a youth. In 1042, he was knighted by King Henry I of France. From there, he conquered territories in Brittany and Maine.
As a result of his position as Duke of Normandy, William gained a great amount of military experience, which benefited him throughout his lifetime.
Being the powerful Duke of Normandy from such a young age, William gained lots of political and military experience and knowledge. From 1047 onwards, William successfully dealt with rebellion inside Normandy, involving his kinsmen, and threats from neighboring nobles, including attempted invasions by his former ally, King Henry I, in 1054 and 1057.
Oh, you are such a bâtard! Your mother was not even royal. They were not even married. Guillaume le bâtard. Guillaume le bâtard.
Despite claiming that he was promised the position of King of England, William did not inherit the throne and was ultimately forced to engage in combat in order to procure the position.
William claimed that the Anglo-Saxon king, Edward the Confessor, promised him the throne 15 years earlier. On his deathbed, however, Edward made no clarification, and Harold Godwinson claimed the throne of England, despite an oath that he had previously made to William to support the Norman claim. The Witan, a council of English lords that commonly took part in deciding succession, supported Harold. William decided to invade England and enforce his claim and gain the rich kingdom for himself.
In the name of the Heavenly Father, I crown you King of all England.
In his quest for the throne, William the Conqueror embarked on a journey for England in order to become the king.
In 1066, claiming the throne, William invaded England at Pevensey and Sussex with the largest invasionary force since the Romans invaded the island 1,000 years earlier.
With approximately 7,000 troops and cavalry, William seized Pevensey and marched to Hastings, where he paused to organize his forces. Preparing for battle against Harold's exhausted forces, who had just defeated the Vikings north of the position, William was confident yet wary of his experienced military foe.
William was unquestionably prepared. His soldiers were well-trained and well-equipped. They wore chainmail armor, which gave them good protection. His cavalry rode specially bred horses which could carry the weight of the heavy horsemen, and still ride at speed. The cavalry rode on special saddles that effectively locked them in place as they rode, and all but allowed them to keep their arms free to fight with. They were the elite of William's army.
While William's army was ready to engage in mortal combat, the same could not necessarily be said for Harold's forces. Tired over its 190-mile journey to York to fight the Vikings just days before, Harold did his best to command his troops and lead them on a path to victory.
Aside from having his numbers reduced at the battle against the Vikings in the north, Harold's forces were immensely tired after making the journey from the Battle of Stamford Bridge to the Battle of Hastings. Oh, King Harold, we can't go much farther. We're exhausted. Oh, come on, you lazy bastards! We only have 100 more miles to go. Oh.
There are three primary reasons as to why William won the Battle of Hastings. The first reason was that King Harold's troops broke formation when the Normans attacked. Secondly, Duke William of Normandy prepared well before the battle. Lastly, William was incredibly lucky.
Meoy! This is the end of Harold!
While William relied on his military experience, he also received the support of the Pope, who was involved in William's conquering of England.
Prior to his journey to England, William received papal support in the form of a blessing and a relic. Furthermore, blessings were made and sent from the Abbey of Bec to all the heads of state who may have wished to join William in his quest, clearly indicating the position of the Church. In addition, prior to William's invasion of England, the Pope provided him with the Banner of St. Peter, a true symbol of God's approval of William's quest for glory.
As demonstrated in William's desire to obtain the consent of the Pope prior to invading England, a monarch could not simply invade other Christian territories without the backing of the Church without facing severe repercussions.
The Pope granted William the Banner of St. Peter and subsequently papal approval.
One of the primary reasons that William was able to legitimize his rule was because of his relationship with the Pope. If the Pope was okay with William the Conqueror taking over England, then it was God's will.
Historian Jacques Le Goff once wrote, When Leo III crowned Charlemagne, he established a precedent that, in the West, no man could be emperor without being crowned by a pope. Because the pope made William's actions divine in nature, it allowed William to gain the favor of the church, the most influential force in the medieval era. As such, individuals would take a liking to William as a result of the pope's backing of him.
Although William conquered England, he ruled alongside the Roman Catholic Church, which was even more influential than William himself.
In medieval Europe, the church and the state were closely intertwined, and Roman Catholicism was a state religion in almost every European country.
When William the Conqueror became King of England, he introduced a new kind of feudal system into Britain. William confiscated the land in England from the Saxon lords and allocated it to members of his own family and the Norman lords who had helped him conquer the country.
William introduced one of the longest-lasting institutions in England, feudalism. The land allocated to a tenants-in-chief was known as a manor, intended to be dispersed across the country rather than in one big area. The tenants-in-chief had to provide for themselves and their families, as well as supporting a number of knights. To do this, the lord sublet his land to other lords lower on the social ladder. At the bottom, the common people worked the land, growing crops and raising animals.
Because of William's decision to replace the Anglo-Saxons rather than assimilate them into the new English culture through his implementation of feudalism, families from the continent almost totally supplanted the English aristocracy. Although the peasantry remained, they were with the new lords, severely affecting their psyche and daily lives. As a result of William's conquering of England and the subsequent cultural changes implemented by him, 1 out of 5 people died in England.